guys, welcome to the Homestead. So today we're going to talk about electroculture and my experience over 2 growing seasons and what I think about it. So I have seen all the advertisements and all the YouTubers out there talking about electroculture, and I said, okay, I'll try to do this and see how it works. And I went ahead and did a number of my own experiments, my own controls to see how I thought it would turn, how things turned out. And I guess I have to say my results are a little bit mixed. Do I think it makes a difference? Probably, maybe. But I think I found some things that I think work better, okay, than electroculture. There's some fundamentals that I think if you use those fundamentals, you're going to have way more success when it comes to gardening. Electroculture is not some end-all be-all magical way to have explosive growth, as I always talk about on some of these channels and on some of these promotions for electroculture. If you don't know what electroculture is, it's basically taking copper pieces of metal and using that to gather electricity in the air and put that into your soil to get better growth in your plants. That's my simple explanation of it. You can do your own research on this. Most of you probably who've been doing gardening for a long time have heard about it. If you're new to gardening, there's only a matter of time before you come across somebody who promotes it and who talks about it. But let me just give you my experience. So what I've done over the last 2 growing seasons is that I took some pieces of copper and I made my own simple copper pieces of metal that you can find people talking about online. And because we have copper, we got copper wiring here and things like that. And so I made all those and I put those on some of my tomato plants and some of my pepper plants. And then some of them I left off and just caged my tomatoes and peppers and other things just to have a control of where I wasn't doing electroculture and just to see, compare the two on what I thought worked best. And there were times where I saw some of my plants that I implemented some of these strategies and techniques where I did see pretty good growth. And then there was times, just being honest with you, where I had some plants, some tomatoes and peppers and other things that I didn't use any sort of electroculture techniques or strategies, and I saw really good growth and some not so good growth. So I guess my experience is mixed on does this work. And so you're going to have to kind of do your own experiment. Am I saying that you shouldn't do it? No, I think you should maybe try to do that and experiment. When it comes to gardening, when it comes to anything homesteading related, it's really going to be about your experience and trying new things and seeing what works well in your area, with your plants, in your environment, and your climate. There's so many variables in my opinion. So how I do my plants is that I take simple tomato cages like this, okay? I made these like 7 or 8 years ago and 6 or 7 years ago. I don't know when I made these. And I use the same cages every year. I make my own cages with just this basic livestock fencing that I wrap around and then tie them together like that. And then I use that for my cages. And then I take pieces of rebar and I weave them in and out of these pieces here, and then I anchor them, hammer them into the ground in order to keep that cage stable. So that's my tomato cages. And really what you're doing there, this is metal, this is steel, and then you're using rebar, which is iron, and you're basically putting that into your ground. So you are getting metal into the ground. It's not copper, but I don't think copper is some magical element on the periodic table that gives you explosive growth in your garden. At least that's not been my experience. Did I see some benefits? On some occasions, yeah, I did. And on other occasions, I didn't. But that's what I do. And I find that when I use my cages and I use my rebar, copper or no copper, I usually get better growth on my plants. And that's because you're just basically keeping your plants off the ground. Okay, you're keeping them off the ground and you're allowing that airflow to breathe underneath the plants. As long as you're caging up your plants, I think that's going to be a really good way to get better growth out of your plants. Proper care of your plants as you're growing them. That's all encompassing. So the things that I think work better, going back to those fundamentals that I spoke of, having good soil, okay? I've mentioned many times on my channel that I think your garden should be like, when you walk on it, it should feel sort of like a waterbed. It should give under your feet as you're walking over it. You should feel that give in that soil, because it's a soft, supple soil where air and water can move throughout. The microbes can live. The mycelium, it has a way to move through the soil easily. If you're walking on your garden soil and you feel like it's like walking on a stone surface, you're not doing something right. There's not enough biodiversity in your soil. And the way I create that, and what I find works much better all around than something like ElectroCulture, is to make sure you have things like, I put eggshells on my garden. Okay, every year I save up my eggshells and I grind them into a powder. I've done videos before on that. And then I place that calcium in that soil. Other things I do is I save up all my coffee grounds all year round. And on the winter time, I place those coffee grounds on my garden. And the the microbes in your soil, the worms in your soil, they love those coffee grounds. It's like a cocaine for those things. And they love it. And then putting manures and different lasagna type layering strategies where you're putting constant things back into your soil, because every year when you harvest all the things out of your ground, of your garden, you're taking nutrients out of that garden, and you need to find a way to replenish all of those things back into your garden. So that's why I find like lasagna layering, putting down all kinds of layers of whether it be straw or hay. And only use hay if you're using like garden fabric, things like that, because the hay will definitely bring up a lot of weeds. But all leaves, ground up leaves, so many different things you can put down in your garden. What I like to do is put manure. We have our own sheep here, so I can get buckets of manure and ground that they've been pooping on and peeing on all year round. I scoop that up with the tractor and I dump that on and spread it on my garden. Or what is even best, and what I've been talking about for years, if you want actual explosive growth out of your garden, use rabbit manure. Rabbit manure, I have found, works best in your garden. That's the number one manure you can put on your garden. More than anything else, rabbit manure is number one. The second best thing that I have found over years of keeping a garden and growing a garden is fish fertilizer. You can get organic fish fertilizer in a number of places. They sell it even, sometimes you can find the organic fish fertilizer even in Walmart. But fish fertilizer, by far, is probably the second best thing I would put on your garden. Use that to water your plants. Make a slurry with it, dilute it down, and then water your plants with that several times during your growing season, or even a dozen times during your growing season. I don't use it every time I water my plants, but I use it quite a bit. And things like that are going to increase the biodiversity. The microbes in your soil are going to explode, and that's what you're going to want. If you're using fertilizer, like chemical fertilizers on your garden, in my opinion, just my opinion, that's like eating fast food all the time. Can you subsist on it? Yes, you can. Will your plants grow with chemical fertilizers? Yes. But when you're putting things like manure and leaves and wood chips and all kinds of things, and you're layering that on your garden, you're adding things like calcium and then fish fertilizer and all that stuff, what you're doing is you're putting like whole foods. Now we're talking about whole foods that the plants and the soil can break down as necessary, as they need it, and then take up with the roots what they need when they need it. I hope that makes sense. One is fast food, one is whole foods. Your body will do much better over the long run if you're feeding it whole foods, and then your body, your digestive system, all the enzymes in your gut and the bacteria in your gut can break those food things down and take up the nutrients they need, that your body needs. It's the same way with your soil. You want to put down whole foods for your soil and then allow that soil to break those things down in a more natural way. When you go out into the woods and you look at you dig past the leaves and you look at the first few inches of soil, it's very soft. It's very easy to get down into for a while, and then before you get down into more harder soils. But it's all that biodiversity where all those things live on the top layers, and that's what you want your garden to be like. You want your garden to be like a waterbed. You want it to be soft. I can literally reach my arm into my garden soil in most places, up to my elbow, and dig down very easily without any sort of tools, just because it's very soft, and I keep it layered, and I keep it fertilized with all of these natural things that take time to break down. If you're starting a new garden, you've never gardened before in a completely new spot, I think rabbit manure is probably the best thing you can put down first to get really good growth out of your first year garden. Normally, gardens will take a couple of years, maybe 3 years, to have really good growth out of them, to be putting these things down. But if you use rabbit manure on your first year, you're going to do fantastic. So, ElectroCulture, yes, I saw some benefits. Is it the end-all, be-all for explosive growth out of your garden? I don't think so. But you can let me know what you think. There's my tips on gardening right now. We're getting ready I got some things already planted in my garden for this spring. And for those of you up north, now's the time to be putting all of these things on your garden to get it ready for your garden this year. So I'm going to be speaking at the Okie Homesteading Expo coming up very shortly. And if you want information on that event, it's going to be in Oklahoma. It's in, you can go to my website, the events page up on my website, inamericanhomestead.com, and look at all the events I'll be speaking at, but that's the first one that's going to be coming up real soon I'll be at. If you're a patron of my channel, the first patron who comes up to me and who can prove to me because they have the app on their phone that they're a patron, I'm going to give you a complete seed pack from ClearwaterValleyFarms.com. ClearwaterValleyFarms.com. This is the Perfect Pickler seed pack. It's got all kinds of seeds in it that you can use for vegetable fermentation. And again, when it comes to gut biodiversity, you want to ferment. Most people 100 years ago, 200 years ago, most of the foods they ate were fermented. Okay, the sourdough bread was fermented before it was baked. The meat curing, that's fermentation from bacteria. The vegetables that they saved throughout the year, that they saved throughout the winter, they fermented these. Most things people ate, the sour cream, the dairy, all that stuff was fermented. There were so many probiotics in people's diets back then. And today, there's almost nothing that we eat that's fermented if you're eating a regular American 21st century diet, which is absolutely sad that you do that. Most people live through the drive-thrus. But I want to encourage you to start fermenting your foods. The first patron who comes up to me and shows me on their phone that they're a patron on the app, I'm going to give you this seed pack, okay? First come, first serve. And so we will be at the Okie Homesteading Expo. We'll be selling our Perfect Pickler kits from perfectpickler.com. I hope you check out that website. If you're interested in fermentation, or if you have a friend who might enjoy one of those kits, you can buy those over at perfectpickler.com. Start fermenting and getting some probiotics in your gut today. All right, guys, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please like the video before you go, and be sure, please, to share this on social media. By sharing it on social media, it lets other people know that we're out here and we're giving good tips on things, and we talk about all the things that are relevant to homesteading today on this channel. I really appreciate when you guys share this on social media. All right, love you guys. I'll see you next time at the Homestead. Bye. Have you ever gone to a health food store and seen all those small bottles of probiotics in your cooler section? Man, can they be pricey. Are you really getting all you need to improve your gut health from those expensive bottles? How viable are they? Most of those products claim to give you between 8 and 15 strains of gut-healthy healing bacteria. Think of each strain of bacteria as a different factory in your gut. Each factory is responsible for breaking down that food in its own way. The more factories you have, the more the food is broken down and the easier the food is absorbed and digested by the body. A 2018 study published by the National Library of Medicine shows that one fermented head of cabbage can produce up to 114 strains of beneficial bacteria. That's a lot more food factories than you're getting from that expensive pill bottle. And that's just cabbage. Imagine the probiotics when you add garlic, onions, pepper, and more to that ferment. PerfectPickler.com and its home fermentation kits provide you with everything you need to get started making your own gut-healthy food factories from the comfort of your own kitchen. PerfectPickler.com even provides a jam-packed recipe book with many of our kits. Visit perfectpickler.com and start fermenting your own veggies to begin your journey to better gut health. That's perfectpickler.com. guys, did you know you can become a patron of an American Homestead? They get access to private videos, and we send them gifts from the homestead that we make here on the homestead. And we also enter our patrons into special giveaways that are only available to them. And before you go, please check out these other great videos. Go ahead, click. I'll wait.